Hey y'all, I'm coming in because I want to start this with Alicia's pick. I am choosing Holding by Alexandria House. I already had this as a recommendation to read, but I recently listened to Alicia's Reread Smut podcast where she had Alexandria on, and this just bumped it up my list. Listening to Alicia speak with Alexandria House about the bipolar representation in this book and the way in which the male main character wanted his wife in any form she would have him in. This is a hockey romance, second chance romance that I had on my list because I started the series last year. It is the St. Louis Sire series, and I knew I wanted to read it soon, but again, listening to the Reread Smut podcast just bumped it up my list, and I knew I needed to read it now. I want y'all to know Alexandria House plays way too much. So I knew that there was a pet iguana in this story. I didn't know that they considered this iguana their son, and like the way in which he was like, yeah, I'm coming over for visitation to go see my son. Is he in his room? Blah, blah, blah. And then it goes to saying, yeah, I laid the grapes on the floor and he climbed down my shoulder. What? Alexandria, you play way too much. And the fact that they are going to personify this iguana and make it like their shared custody child is hilarious to me. Alexandria House knows how to get me laughing, and I'm so interested to see how this romance is going to go. So I'll come back and let you know my thoughts on the book as I continue to read it, but just know I'm in for a good time. And not a long time because I'm listening to it in audio. So I'm coming in to give you my thoughts on Holding. Now, I only did a quick check-in right before this, thinking that I was going to have time. No, I gobbled this up. Like, I read it in a day. That is how much I love Alexandria House and her writing. This was a 4.5, leaning towards a 4.75. This is Holding, the second in the St. Louis Sire series. This is centering our male main character, Terrence Ford. He is a professional hockey player in a all-black NHL league. I love the fact that Alexandria House said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And black people play hockey and we play it exclusively. Do not think that this is going to be a black man joining a traditional team and he's going to be outcasted. No, he's going to be the star and the center of attention. This is a neighbors to lovers, childhood enemies turned into lovers storyline that I absolutely adored. First and foremost, again, Alexandria House is going to make me laugh. I told you all, she personified Ladarius, which is their pet iguana, which is truly their son, and I get it, right? Like, they truly treat Ladarius, and I say they, I mean Terrence. Ford is like, I know you didn't leave my son by himself. Where he going? Crystal was like, he's in a cage. He not going nowhere. And it's a gilded cage. Like, the boy is living the high life. And you worried about me being outside with somebody else and says it's because of our son. Don't give me that. Thinking about this book, I love that it had so many layers and so much depth to it. These two have been divorced for 3 years, and in that time they've separated. They've really been loving each other from a distance. Now, it's interesting the way in which they go about it. Crystal has kind of become a recluse and has isolated herself. She's not going on dates. She's not socializing with people that are outside of her work unless it's a professional manner. So she runs into a professional basketball player named Chase. And Chase is like, hey, yes, I'm interested in buying a home, but I'm also interested in buying you a meal. And so Crystal's like, okay, maybe I can force myself to get ready to go out and spend some time getting to know someone else. So her and Chance go on a date. And unfortunately, the first time she leaves the house with a man, she goes to a place where her ex-husband happens to be at. And that kind of sparks this fire under Ford. Like, wait a minute, why I didn't know she was back out dating? Like, I'm out here, but I don't want none of these women. Like, I'm just biding my time when I really want her. But now that she's out here, I don't like that. And I feel like that is what kind of is the catalyst for them getting themselves together. Like, Crystal is like, oh, snap. Like, I pushed my husband away. And I wasn't really sure whether or not I wanted to be away from him. And he's like, I never wanted to be without you. Like, I wanted to be 10 toes down from you, with you through the end of time. And I'm still riding for you, and I'm going to get you back. And the way in which their love has stood the test of time. Like, you can't find either one of them talking bad about each other to their friends. You can't find that if one is in need, if something is going on, they won't drop everything and run to them. I just love that this gives you also the flashbacks of them growing up. So, like, you get to see that Crystal met Ford as a child. When they moved into the neighborhood, it was very much giving Love and Basketball, like where my mom and your mom, we meet up, we the black people in the neighborhood, let's raise our children together, they're of the same age. And I honestly, the bridge in which their relationship stems on is Crystal's twin brother, Blake. And, of course, as they're all twins, Blake's mama is like, nah, if you think you're going somewhere with Ford, you need to say Crystal. Like, you never leaving your sister behind. And I love, again, one thing about Alexandria House is always black coded. Like, you can tell the vibes, and I resonate so heavy with her. Like, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm in St. Louis. This book is set in St. Louis. Granted, I think that Alexandria House is from Arkansas, but culture is universal. And I love the fact that one thing I know about Alexandria House, if I read the book, I'm going to feel right at home. This was a fantastic storyline. True to her nature with this series, everything to me is smooth sailing. Like, I am loving the flashbacks and the flash forwards. However, when we get to the 80% mark, Alexandra has like this flip in her mind that she's just like, all right, I'm about to tear stuff up. Like, I'm about to shake the tape. But I'm like, girl, we don't have the time for you to decide that you want to put a plot twist in here, or for you to decide, oh, I'm not going to have a third act breakup, but I will have chaos that I bring onto the page. Like, in this, Ford, again, was talking mess, and he gets into it with someone, and he pretty much gets a concussion. And I'm like, we are so close. Like, we could have just wrote it out and been fine. And that's where the 5-star rating that it would have had, I was like, you threw something in at the last minute. Very similar to what she did with Gold. And I was like, I'm not sure if we needed this, but I'm going to rock with you, and I'm going to see where it goes. I'm so glad that I heard Alicia talk about this with Alexandria House on her series. I will leave a link to that video and a link to Alicia's page, because holding was my jam. I am going to pick up my next read. Actually, I've already started it, which is going to be from my homegirl Casey. She is Read WKC, and for her pick, I am choosing The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. This one is one that I see her talk about quite a lot. She did really love this one. I know a lot of people like it, and so I knew that I needed to read this because I had actually started this series with the second book, and everyone says The Neighbor Favor is best of the series. Now, I'm about, I would say, 10 to 15% in with this book. This is a bookish, sweet, soft romance. You know me, I love a lot of angst. I love a lot of drama, hence me reading Holding. This one, I think, is just going to be cute and cozy, and I'm trying not to put my preconceived notions. I think that I have this one too high on a pedestal, because right now I'm getting through those emails and I'm like, there's nothing that's really holding me. But I hope that my first initial thoughts are deceived, and I really do grow to love this romance, because this is the story of our two main characters. Nick, who is a he is an author, and he is kind of in a recluse state. He has walked away from his book. He did create one 5 years ago, and it didn't really get the traction that he wanted, and he's not necessarily happy. So he considers himself as a reformed writer, and now he is writing for a magazine and traveling the world. But his publisher is trying to push him to get back into writing and to finish the series off, which the few people that have read the series, one being our main female character, Lily, have loved it, right? And so Lily actually realizes that the publisher has created a website for Nick. And so she sends him an email and they become pen pals. So they start chatting back and forth. And Lily's like, I really love your book. And he's like, wow, you're the first person to ever communicate with me about my book. I really haven't thought about it since I put it out there into the world. I'm not necessarily sure. And so they're encouraging each other back and forth via email. They're talking about Nick's travels. She's talking about her interest of becoming an editor for children's books based off of the story. So she is telling him about the field interviews that she goes through. And through that, they spend about 5 months building their relationship online until where I'm at right now, where Nick is like, my publisher is almost at the point of convincing me to come back to New York. We should probably meet up. And Lily's like, bet. Let's go ahead and set a FaceTime up, and he ghosts her. And that is where I'm at so far. So I believe what really happens in this story, like they have a connection and a kinship, but again, he probably has a little bit of social anxiety, and she definitely does as well, but she felt that her comfort level with him was enough to get past her anxiety of, forming a relationship or a bond. Because one thing about it, her sisters are always trying to set her up. And she's like, no, no, no. But Nick, it was a yes. And so this is a situation where I do know that when he finally does move next to New York, they become neighbors. And I'm not sure if she actually knows who he is. So this is a hidden identity pen pals, neighbors to lovers storyline that I am interested in reading more from. And I will come back to you all and tell my thoughts. Okay, I have just finished The Neighbor paper, and I think I'm giving this a 3 or a 3.25. I did enjoy it. It wasn't anything that I would write home about, but I know this is a lot of people's favorite. For me, I liked the fact that we got a lot more about Nick's backstory, getting to understand why he was so closed off, being that it came from his relationship with his parents and how he felt like the men in his family had a generational curse in terms of they were doomed when it came to the matters of love and their poor decision making. And he felt like that was the thing that was going to hold him back and why he wasn't really giving Lily the time of day. But no matter what, Lily and him continued to be in each other's orbits. Again, she started to work in the same building as him, in addition to living in the same building as him, because his book had got picked up by her publishing company. Now, she wasn't going to work on it, which, speaking of her job, I will also say that it frustrated me a little bit that she didn't really find her voice and find her way in towards the end. I want Lily to be able to tell Edith, hey girl, you print out your own papers, and while you're at it, take a paper cut. But that's not in her character, and I do understand that and appreciate that Christina wrote her true to character. Like, she went the entire way being true to who Lily was. However, I wanted a little bit more. I wanted more from these characters, and to me, they just had a sweet, subtle love, and I wanted, passion and explosion. Even their scene where they finally get together, I just felt like, oh, I actually didn't need this. Like, you held off this entire time without them necessarily being intimate with one another, and then when you did give it to me, it was just like nothing to me. Not saying that every book has to have spice in it, but if you're going to go this entire way of them being a slow burn and them not necessarily being in a relationship, just kind of ride it out into the end and then let us have a guessing game at the end. That's what I would have preferred. But again, I am glad that I read this. Now that I've read 2 in this series, surprisingly, I will say that Violet's book is better to me than this one. But again, that's because I'm looking for a little bit more tension than what The Neighbor favorite could give. I'm debating if I'm going to read the third one. We did get to see her sister meet Angel, which is her love character. So Iris and Angel get introduced at Violet's divorce party. So I feel like in one regard, I'm already at the end. I only have one more book to read, so why don't I do it? But again, this series so far to me has been mid, so I really don't know yet. My next booktuber that I want to read a recommendation from is Sharonda Isadora. I follow Sharonda on BookTube, Instagram, and her podcast. However, I had to scour both her booktube and her bookstagram to see if I could find one that stood out from her. And I chose Haven by Drea Anderson. Now, I do know that Sharonda really likes Drea Anderson's books. And I figured since I had Haven on my Kindle, actually I have the entire series, I would pick this one up. However, I have decided to DNF Haven at 15%. I'm not going to say that it's indicative of the author's writing. I think it's just this particular book. I do plan on picking up another Drea Anderson sometime in the future because a lot of people like her. I have 3 people I'm thinking about off top. Heather from Hia Booktubes, Heather from Happy for Now, and Sharonda Isadora all like Drea Anderson, but Haven just didn't fit the vibe check for me. 15% in the way. I realized that this was a fated mate romance where one, they did a kind of like a time jump, like the characters had seen each other and then I blink. No, there was no discussion and they were in bed together sleeping with one another. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird. But I'm going to roll with it. Then the next thing happened and I was like, wait a minute, y'all are fated mates. But in this dynamic, he holds all the cards. Like, he made 2 offhanded comments that let me know, oh, this is where I end. Because one comment was about him being her fated and she wanted to leave because the situation got a little bit uncomfortable for her. She was sneaking around the club trying to find her sister and she really wasn't trying to be caught. But they did capture her and they were like, hey, who are you and what's your purpose for breaking into our club? And they realized that she was his mate. And she was like, actually, I'm about to bounce. Like, it's cool. Actually, we don't have to do this again. And he was like, oh, you can't leave. Like, you can't leave without my permission. Like, you're my fated mate. In order for you to leave, you got to get my permission. Said who? Baby, you didn't even know my name, my real name, until 2 seconds ago. And now you think you can tell me what to do? Nah, not over here. And then he doubled down on it. And there was a conversation about, like, his particular species, right? I think that he was a Kargan. I'm not sure exactly what that means because we were going to find out a little bit more, but I think the Kargans have the ability to protect and serve, and they try to keep the rest of the demigods in order, and they are kind of like a military group. And so one of the comments that was made about his particular species was the fact that the men specifically are promiscuous, and sometimes the women. And she made a comment about like him being promiscuous, and he was like, yeah, while that may be true, if you want me to stay faithful, like, you need to satisfy me. Baby, actually, you know what? I didn't ask to be in this situation. I didn't ask to be fated to you. I actually really don't necessarily care what you do, but what you're not going to do is, one, tell me what I can do, and then tell me that I have to satisfy you in order to keep you. Baby, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to. So, again, that book just wasn't the vibes for me, and I DNF'd it. However, I think I'm going to pick up Drea Wells, which is also a book that Sharonda Isadora liked, which is going to be Going Down Smooth. This is also a book that I've seen recommended by Heather from Happy for Now. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up Going Down Smooth. It is an Omega-verse romance, and I'm going to come back and give you my thoughts and hope that I have a better reaction to this Drea than the other Drea. Talk to y'all soon. Okay, I'm back to give you an update. I just finished Drea Wells' Going Down Smooth, and true to Drea Wells' fashion, I'm giving it a 4-star. She's a 4-star author for me. It's always reaching the cusp of 5-star, and I have a feeling that one of her future books that I will be reading will have a 5-star waiting for me. But in relation to Going Down Smooth, part 1, this is an Omega-verse. Forced proximity, why choose friends to enemies to lovers. There is some hurt comfort in here. It's all around a really good time. This centers our female main character, Mercy. Mercy is coming back into town after having been away for so long because her father has passed away and it's time to read the rights of the will. And so she has left the town because her father kind of forced her hand to say, you need to marry or mate these 4 gentlemen. Now, truly there shouldn't be an issue with these four gentlemen and her being mated because they are best friends. But the entire time they believed that they were going to be Pac and that she was going to be Alpha because she was a late presenting Omega. She was like, oh, I don't want to be forced into societal norms about breeding or being domesticated and someone leading the way and telling me what I need to do. And girl, I understand. So this book starts off with like a captivating scene where she's running through the woods in a ceremony mating dress and the rain, and she is leaving her alphas. So this is Rejected Mates. And she hasn't seen them in 5 years. Now she comes back in town in dramatic Flair fashion, like she bust opens the church and they are saying her name. Now she did not know at the time that these men would have this type of effect on her, but she probably should have knew because she is now about to go into heat. And the four gentlemen were made specifically for her. Now my favorite is Locks. Like Locks and me, we kindred. I see you, bae. Love him down. My second option would be Trey. Trey is a smooth singing man that just could like hit all of the notes for me. So I understand. Now I have a toss up between Nate and Knight. Now they are brothers, but there was something that was done in this book that kind of irritated me about them. And it had to do with how they were talking about Mercy's best friend, Freya, who I stand for. Like Freya's interaction in this book actually overshadowed Mercy, which is a gift and a curse. I will say, being that this is Mercy's book, we shouldn't get anything that takes away from her story and that makes me want to go jump into something else, because Nothing's Free, which is Freya's story, is a little bit precluded in this book, and I appreciate that she did it because I was like, okay, I'm set, like tell me more. But honestly, it just makes me want to skip book 2 and jump directly into hers. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, take my time because I hear Freya's book is a really set off by the things that happen in part 2 of Going Down Smooth. So it's a benefit knowing that I have something to look forward to. It's a curse because I started to have feelings about the way the men were talking down about Freya in comparison to Mercy, and nobody needs that. But outside of that, I will say I really enjoyed this book because it talks about like societal standards and how women should be treated. Again, very, very relevant to the times, and how women should have the ability to lead and the ability to stand on their own 2 feet and not have to feel like their designation in life is determined by something that's outside of their control. I loved that it gave, some additional balance, right? She had a relationship with each one of these men, and you could see how they really formed their relationship as they were children. Again, this is a childhood friends to enemies turned to lovers, but they all have loved each other this entire time. They were just fighting destiny. So if you are an Omegaverse fan, please pick this up. No, again, it does have some dark content and it ends on a major cliffhanger. I told you this is a duology for this particular book, but it has a series getting into Freya's book. This cliffhanger, you're like, now I know she didn't end like that. And again, I love it when I get to a book, there's already the sequel out, and so I can just jump right into it, which I might do, or I might read the next book for this video. We'll see what happens. Talk to y'all soon. Okay, I'm here to close out this vlog. My final book that I read was Take a Chance by Maiko May. This is a recommendation I got from Ray at Bookmark Chronicles. I needed a quick, short novella that was going to give me island vibes because life is kicking my butt right now and I really want someone to be on someone's beach, just laying and enjoying the sun and letting my problems be back in the United States where I am just living the dream. This is a story of Cassandra and Cyrus. They went to high school together. Cyrus has always actually loved Cassandra, but she never took him serious, and now is his chance, being that he is in Mexico for his brother's wedding, and he runs into Cassandra at the bar. Actually, she runs into him. She sees him from the back, and she's like, "Ooh, this is a fine man. Let me sit up at the bar. Let me grab a drink. Let him catch my eye." And catch her eye, he definitely did. And so she goes, "Oh, wait a minute, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm here for my brother's wedding. What are you doing here? And she's like, I'm here just to get away. And he's like, cool, let's get away together and let's spend the time together. And it's just a very cute, like, let's fall back into each other's orbit, let's enjoy the time, and while we're enjoying the time, let's see where this could lead. And it's very cute, very quick. I've read a couple of other books that have this vibe, but do it a little bit better than this for my liking. I'm thinking particularly GL Seekers again, or thinking Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop. Again, not saying that they're apple to apples, but both of them have a wedding vibe. One is actually set in Mexico. I think this one didn't say it was in Tulum, but the other one was. It's just one of those situations where I came in with higher expectation because everyone's really loving Take a Chance. And I'm not saying it's a bad book. It's just, it didn't feel the void that I had, so I might need to go back and reread one of those others that I mentioned. But this is where I'm going to close out the vlog, because I need something else to kind of feel my slump, because I'm also reading Oathbound and I'm almost at the end, and that is high stakes. That is a lot of shit going on that I need something cutesy to balance it out. So that's what I will be doing. And closing out this vlog, if you have a recommendation for me and you'd like for me to read it and review it on the channel, please drop it down below. If not, do me a favor, leave me a cloud emoji. It has been storming and it is very gross. So if there is a cloud emoji, or leave me gray because I have gray fingernails, some sort of emoji that sets the mood. And I will talk to you later. Bye.